Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're looking at a really foundational work, actually. Thorstein Veblen's The Theory of the Leisure Class came out way back in 1899.
Right, slap bang in the middle of the Gilded Age in the U.S., massive industrial expansion, huge fortunes being made, and, well, very visible displays of that wealth.
Exactly. And Veblen himself is interesting, isn't he? A Norwegian immigrant looking at American society.
That outsider perspective is key, I think. Let him see things differently, maybe question behaviors that insiders just took for granted. He could really dissect why the wealthy acted the way they did, even when it seemed, well, irrational.
Yeah, and the big idea we're exploring today, which feels incredibly relevant still, is how social status, especially these modern industrial societies, often isn't about, the work you do.
It's about how clearly you can signal your wealth, how much leisure time you can visibly waste
It's a huge shift, right? From value based on production to value based on consumption and display.
Totally. And Veblen tied this into a bigger picture, sort of an evolutionary view of society. He thought social habits evolved, like natural selection.
So today's consumerism isn't new. It has older roots.
He argued it does, yeah. Trace it back to, like, tribal warrior cultures or feudal lords showing off their power and status. It's a long historical thread leading to how we buy things today.
Okay, let's get into the specifics then. One of his most famous ideas, conspicuous consumption. Can you break that down?
Sure. Conspicuous consumption is basically spending on goods and services you don't really need. The main driver isn't utility, it's demonstrating your wealth. It's about showing others your social standing.
Right. So you buy it because it's expensive or showy.
Exactly. It's about impressing people, gaining social recognition through what you own or buy.
What kind of things did Veblen point to? Things we might still recognize.
Oh, lots. Think luxury cars, designer clothes with obvious branding, expensive jewelry, but also less tangible things like pursuing higher education not just for knowledge but as a status marker.
Huh. Education too.
Yeah, or even things like tracing elaborate family trees, knowing obscure points of etiquette, employing servants. It all signals you're removed from productive work.
So the wastefulness is almost the point. It proves you don't have to be productive.
That's a core part of it. The social utility lies in the visible waste. He even suggested that sometimes we confuse sheer costliness with actual beauty or quality because of this.
That makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
What about pecuniary emulation? How did that fit in?
Pecuniary emulation is sort of the engine driving conspicuous consumption across society. It's that desire we have to, well, match or even beat the social standing of others by copying their spending habits.
Ah, the whole keeping up with the Joneses idea.
Pretty much, yeah. Veblen saw it as a fundamental mechanism for how culture changes. People look at those slightly above them in status and try to imitate their consumption patterns.
Like a trickle-down effect for spending.
Exactly. You see it within social classes. People try to copy those just above them to gain or maintain their own status. That's why certain expensive brands become popular. They're seen as symbols of that higher status, even if buying them causes financial strain. It's all social comparison, really, competing through showing off wealth.
And the group at the very top doing all this originating, that's the leisure class.
That's the term Veblen used, yes.
Yeah.
Essentially, the upper class, exempt from what he saw as productive industrial labor. Historically, nobility, clergy. In his time, increasingly the owners of capital, the wealthy business class.
And their main characteristic is not working.
That exemption from productive work is central. It defines them.
So what else characterizes them, according to Veblen?
Well, there's conspicuous leisure, visibly non-productive uses of time. Think elaborate social rituals, certain kinds of sports maybe. They often value tradition, conservatism, because change might threaten their position.
Makes sense.
Then there's pecuniary reputability status derived directly from having wealth, shown by not needing to work. They accumulate possessions, both material and non-material, like lineage or education, and often maintain kind of archaic social skills.
Where did this class come from historically?
Veblen traced it back to early societies with private property, often linked initially to, like, prowess in war or hunting predatory habits, he called them. Over time, that evolved into displaying status through wealth. He argued their social function often became conservative, preserving the status quo, setting tastes, but potentially hindering progress.
He contrasted this leisure ideal with something else, didn't he? The instinct of workmanship.
Yes, the instinct of workmanship. He saw this as a fundamental human drive, a desire to do useful work, to be efficient, effective, to take pride in skill, a basic dislike of waste and futility.
So the opposite of the leisure class's focus.
Pretty much. The leisure class, with its emphasis on non-productive activities and conspicuous waste, directly contradicts this instinct. They often look down on industrial labor, seeing it as undignified. Veblen also mentioned idle curiosity, the drive to learn just for the sake of knowing, which he felt could also get sidelined in a purely profit-driven society.
Right. So pulling it together, what was Veblen's main critique of the industrial society he saw emerging?
He saw the leisure class as fundamentally inefficient, even damaging. Their focus on wasteful display and maintaining status hindered economic progress and useful innovation. It absorbed resources that could have gone into, well, genuine improvements in well-being.
And it created tension.
A huge tension between what he called business, the pursuit of profit, finance, and industry, the actual making of useful things. He felt the goals of business often actively hampered industry. The leisure class was aligned with business, potentially acting like parasites on the productive parts of the economy.
So summing up then, why should we still read Veblen today? Why does the theory of the leisure class matter now?
Oh, its influence is huge. For sociology, it basically laid the groundwork for studying consumer culture and social class, shifting focus to consumption. In economics, it helped found institutional economics, gave us concepts like Veblen goods, things people want because they're expensive.
Right, the ultimate status symbol.
Exactly. And it challenged the idea of purely rational economic actors. Plus, its critique of consumerism and inequality feels, well, incredibly current. Conspicuous consumption is still a term we use all the time.
It really does resonate.
Yeah.
So maybe a final thought for our listeners. How do Veblen's ideas about status and consumption play out today? Especially, with social media everywhere.
Yeah.
What would he make of Instagram lifestyles or, I don't know, unboxing videos? What are the new forms of conspicuous consumption and leisure he might point out? Something to think about.
Definitely food for thought.
Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.